October 1st work session for the Rutherford County School System. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and that is going to be taken care of by Caleb Tidwell this evening.
Thank you. We have a few special guests with us today. Joining me today are 4 members of Plainview Elementary's National Beta Club chapter. These students were recognized for consistently exhibiting academic achievements, character, leadership, and service at Plainview Elementary. Our Beta Club emphasizes leading by serving otters. Do you like that? That was a nice touch. Jackson Sturm is a 5th grade student at Plainview Elementary. He loves Jesus, baseball, and his family. He's a member of both Beta Club and Plainview's archery team. Ralph Hopkins is a 5th grade student at Plainview Elementary. He's a member of both Beta Club and Plainview's archery team. Brooks Patterson is a 5th grader at Plainview. He is also a proud member of Honor Roll every year, Beta Club, and archery team. He loves Jesus and his family, and especially his dog, Tater. Is that the dog's name? Tater? Micah Arcos is also joining us. He is in 5th grade as well. He plays soccer and basketball at Plainview, and he enjoys reading history books and drawing. So they will be leading us in the pledge. If you could all stand. Thank you, fellas.
Thank you, very nice. Our next item of business is I would like to propose a moment of silence for 2 different items. I would like to pray for the hurricane victims. It's devastated a lot of the South, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, and Tennessee. Also, here closer to home, Caleb's son, Kingston, has been ill, and I'd like for us to pray for him for healing. Bow your heads, please. Thank you. Next up, we have number 4, approval of the agenda. Give everybody a minute to look it over. Any comments? Discussion? If not, we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda.
You'll see several retro reviews on here, and I'll discuss those a little bit later on at Mr. Vaughn's request. I think it's under number 9, so I'll discuss that a little bit later.
Okay. Okay, well, moving on. We will have public comment tomorrow, and we will do Rutherford Strong tomorrow. So we'll move to instruction, tab 2, number 8.
Number 8, the first one that we have is the additional Arabic parent liaison for the English as a second language department. ESL department's requesting to add an additional Arabic parent liaison. With the increase of Arabic speakers in the district, there's need for additional translations for school documents, district documents, parent communication, and meetings and enrollment support. This is a 10-month position that will be funded by Title III.
Do you anticipate having any trouble finding anyone? Okay.
Hope not.
Any other discussion?
Ms. Maxwell?
Yes.
Dr. Sullivan? I know this is not in here, but during your director's report, can you please provide information about the growth with our ESL?
I will tomorrow.
Growth positions that we were looking for?
Yep.
I know you mentioned that with the county commissioners and the budget, when you met with the Health and Ed, the committee, but I think it's very important that we are aware of the increase with our migrants. Well, with our ESL, I don't want to say migrants, but ESL students. Thank you.
I'll do that tomorrow during director's update.
Thank you so much.
Moving on.
Next is Optimal Health for Me, or OH4M. Optimal Health for Me is a sexual risk avoidance, or SRA, program promoting a holistic approach to sex and healthier relationships. This program aims to provide trained speakers to classrooms within RCS aligned to the standards and within the expectations of the Family Life curriculum. This program complies with TCA 49.6.1301 through to TCA 49.6.1308, requiring our program to be age-appropriate, sexual risk avoidance, abstinence-centered, evidence-based, and medically accurate. This program is available for grades 6 through 12 and ranges from 3 to 5 lessons.
This was just recently passed by our legislature, right?
We've been doing this for several years with
Okay.
this group, though.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
is this replacing a program that we currently use?
No, it's something we've had, and it has active parent consent first.
Do we have any information, like when it says that there will be trained speakers, do we know, are they just trained through a specific program for this specifically? Are they actual teachers or?
Jenna, I know we have you and Portico here as well. Would y'all want to come up and speak? Is that okay? You okay with that, to answer questions?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I know you just walked in and now you get thrown to it, so, yeah.
Kelsey's the director of OH4M, so you want to talk about training speakers? Yeah, absolutely. So our program, we have volunteers that are trained specifically for this programming. They go through about 16 hours of training in the curriculum, and then they are transitioned to the classroom on a shadowing basis. They shadow for several weeks and then transition, and then I actually kind of check them off and watch them teach and make sure they're good to go.
Any other questions?
Ms. Maxwell,
Yes, Mr.
how many schools were you in, or has this program been in recently?
So last year, I actually have our impact report from last year if you guys would like it. Last year, I believe we were in 15 schools, and I think we're on track this year to be in 18 or 19.
I'd say something, because I work with the health and wellness teachers. This is really good for them because the pressure on them to teach this kind of thing is extraordinary, and they don't want to do it. So this is very helpful for them. It's been a really good partnership for us.
I have a question. When you say 18, 15, is that in Rutherford County?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, our program is developed specifically for Rutherford County schools. We curate our own curriculum. We are part of a nationally accredited program called Ascend, and they do abstinence-based sexual risk avoidance education nationwide, but we are part of that national umbrella, and then we are also part of a Tennessee coalition of SRA programs in multiple counties.
I like the abstinence space. That's good.
That's what Tennessee state law says.
There's absolutely.
But it's a good thing it's a state law then. Is
I
there,
think it's,
Hold on just a second. Mr. Bo- Yes, Ms. Sharp. Or Ms., oh, was it Ms. Darby?
Just asking if there was cost associated with the program.
We provide our program free for any Rutherford County school.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Bond.
yeah, this program is very much needed in our schools. And the success rate, I think, it's shown because the teen pregnancy rate has dropped. And I think mainly a lot of it has to do with this program. So it's a really good program.
Is that-
ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Tidwell.
I did request from Ms. Kelsey to send me the curriculum, and so I was able to go through it. I'm sure she would be open to send it to any others if y'all had any questions, but I found it to be very useful.
Any other questions? Thank you, ladies, so much for coming.
Stan,
Oh, so sorry, Mr. Bond, yes.
anybody from the state looked at the curriculum? State Department of Education.
Anybody looked at it to approve it? Do we need somebody to look at it to approve it? Those are the questions I've got.
So we have, in our Tennessee network, we have had the representatives from the state have looked at the kind of foundation of the program and the network that we're in. Right. As far as specifically OH4M, I don't believe recently that has happened, but I believe that's something that has happened in the past. And we provide our curriculum to anyone that would like to review it. And then I've also reviewed the curriculum with several county officials as well.
And the only reason I bring that up, Ms. Sharp, you had brought up before one of the first meetings on it.
Pretending that something happened last year. Yes. And I don't want to see us getting that same sideways misunderstanding, and I think you can probably address that, right?
So there's a law associated.
Where's the checks and balances?
Yeah, there's a law associated with this where parents have to have 30 days notice.
Right.
So I go above and beyond that. All the curriculum is on Coordinated School Health website. 365 is always there. I put it up day one because I want the parents to see it. We're not trying to hide anything. So they get more than 30 days. Parents can opt out. Everything is open. So, and we follow all the laws. So
That's our checks and balances.
yeah, and we've never had an issue after several years of doing this. So that's what we're doing.
No, and thank you for that, because I mean, it is obviously a very sensitive and family-based subject, but just making sure we don't overstep our bounds.
Yeah, I'm a parent too. So I get it.
It's a delicate.
It's very delicate. Let me put it that way. Thank you.
And just to be clear, that's not affiliated with us in any way, shape, or
I know.
I-
We're clear.
Thank you for,
Separate entities, yeah.
yes, Ms. Sharp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are you finished?
Yes, ma'am.
I did go out today and do some searching and everything on the internet and did find out that y'all were related with Portico, who I'm familiar with, and saw everything pretty much that I needed out on Facebook. So I like that we don't have to dig and dig and dig and go here and go looking everywhere else.
For that it's plain and simple, and it's on the internet, and you don't have to go anywhere else to look at it. So thank you for making it plain and simple for me.
So in an effort to be as transparent as possible, Dr. Sullivan and I did discuss, and he requested last year, some videos for parents that they can watch. I have those ready to go. We are working to update our website that those are going to be accessible through our website, but I will also make them available through, links that people can get to them, and those explain kind of a broad overview of the program, as well as each individual grade, 6th, 7th, 8th, and high school is what we're teaching, with also some like little snippets of frequently asked questions. So those are ready, and we will have those up ASAP, and I hope to come back to you guys in November with those.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all so much.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Dr. Sullivan, I don't know if this is better for you or them. With the parent opt-out, how can you kind of walk through how that, is it a form that's sent home 30 days before?
Yes, it is. Yes. Yes.
And also, so we've done a form, but starting next year, the form is going to be in, it's not going to be Skyward next year, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be with all the registration forms.
Okay.
So we're going to have it there, so they'll have it from day one.
We're going to be in Skyward next year.
No.
Hallelujah. Let me tell you about Skyward, okay? Because I had to do this all over again with my youngest child. I do not, and I know this is not pertaining to you, but it's just a little bit of a soapbox that I have with Skyward. But why is it when you register your child the very first time, then you got to go back and re-register them a second time after you register them the first time? I don't get that. It makes zero sense to me. I just had to say my little beef about that, sorry.
Could be
I'm
why
sure there will be problems with the new one as well, anytime you have a
Yes,
huge
but
transition,
but if we get the new one, once someone registers, enrolls their child the first time, and then you're asking them to go back into whatever platform we use, don't ask them to re-register them as if they were re-registering the first time when they already did that. Like, they should already create the account and then just have the forms that they need. That's just my beef, sorry.
Hopefully it will. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
Come bearing gifts.
I did. This is just copies of our state law that addresses the family life curriculum and our standards
Thank you.
present to the classroom. There's also a impact report from
Thank you.
last year as far as how many students we saw and some comments from students. We do collect comments from them and collect statistics for you guys to see how our program works.
Awesome.
Thank you. Moving on to number 3.
Number 3 is our Science Curriculum Adoption Committee. The names and qualifications of the following individuals are being submitted for appointment to the 24-25 Science Curriculum Adoption Committee upon board approval. The appropriate forms, Education Department Form 2150, are attached. The document includes educators, parents, experts to serve on each respected committee. Dr. Chastain, would you give us an update on kind of where that process is? The state has changed a lot of their adoption timelines over the years. We're under a standards review right now for English language arts that doesn't go into effect till 29/30. And it's a little bit all over the place, but can you tell us a little bit about science?
Yes, so we are moving forward with the adoption for science to go into effect following school year. The state has just recently authorized convenings in the Mid-State and West Tennessee and East Tennessee to go over the rubrics adoption process. We don't expect anything to really have changed fundamentally with that part of the process, and then we will start our reviews in December and be ready, hopefully, with a recommendation to the board by April.
It's April 15th is the state deadline, correct?
Yes, so hopefully we'll have ours to you by March, is our goal, to have it early and not later. The process is open to you all. If you would like to attend when we get our agendas and dates finalized, we'll make that available to you as well. We have a combination of subject matter experts, teachers, administrators, and parents on every committee as required by our policy, so you will see those names listed in the attached documentation.
Other part I would add is that we do not have science adoption budgeted as part of this school year, and so that is something that we will look at that point. During last year's budget, we put just a placeholder amount for textbooks, and so that is something that helps us in that we always budget a year in front so that we can order before July 1st. These science textbooks will be part of next year's budget, which means that, one, you're looking at $7 to $9 million in additional charges. We've talked about for the last 2 years, this would be the year that it hit us budgeting, and this is absolutely this, computers, insurance, all transportation, all those things are this year, and it's not just us, it's the county commission as well that is struggling. Depending on what our fund balance is, once we get to March and April, we may have some options to go ahead and start purchasing some of the grade levels so that teacher kits would at least be here by July 1st, but we will be like every other district in not submitting our orders until July 1st, which means we're probably not going to have all the materials to start the school year.
Understand.
It's just the way the budget cycle works.
Mr. Vaughn.
Does the science curriculum, does it change that much to where the books need to be redone? And science doesn't change a whole lot.
Science is ever developing, Mr. Vaughn.
Have you seen this? Well, you should know.
So that is a good question. So this was not a complete rewrite like we saw about 7-8 years ago. So the standard changes are not huge. So I think what you're getting at, Dr. Sullivan mentioning the budget, our legal requirement is to adopt but not necessarily purchase. So we will look at all possible options in terms of what is absolutely necessary and what needs to get in the hands of our kids, I think is what you're asking. So at the high school level, the changes are smaller than they are at the middle school level.
So this brings to question, if the changes are very minimal, could we look into some books not being replaced? Could we still, as long as it meet the standards, could we still use what we're using for high school? Because I agree, I don't understand what changes it would be in science unless, we've already cracked the code of DNA, right? And so we know there's a double helix and there's genetics and all that. So and we know that Dolly was created in 2000.
Quit showing off, Mrs. Rosales.
I know,
Showing off.
this is, I love science, so unless they're going to teach them how to create an atomic bond, I don't know what the difference
That is not in the standards, so I don't want to get
No,
that
no,
out there.
Not a
the
standard.
point is that I just don't know what the changes in the science to create a whole new curriculum where we're going to put so much money in getting something that really the changes, the edits are just very small, especially when we get into the high school level. I'm not an educator, but that's just my.
One little hang up on all of that is that we have moved mostly to digital resources. So whether, when we have hardback books that if you think about, we purchase those, we have the books, we wouldn't necessarily need to purchase additional books because they would have those in schools. With most materials being digital, we have to still purchase site licenses every year. So that's the only hang up that causes a little bit of a budget implication regardless of what we quote unquote purchase or adopt. I think there's about 10 different avenues we could go down that we can have further discussion about that would be a little more budget friendly and get teachers and students what they need with no concessions made there, but yeah.
So in your opinion, I know we may need to discuss this at a retreat about textbooks, but when it comes to the major changes, like math, for example, the way math is taught today is very different than when I was teaching math. So obviously there was major changes, and so we're needing a whole new adoption. But then a subject like English, like how much change has there been with English when it comes to teaching today? Do we need to spend money on new curriculum if the changes are minimal? I guess my question is, my question to you guys is to think, is the investment worth it if the changes are minimal, if the standards are still going to be fulfilled with whatever we have today? That's just my thinking.
Yep, and I think our science folks are thinking the same thing. So like I said, there's a few options that we've started looking at that might be more budget friendly, and again, I think we could have the best of both worlds. We'll see how the process plays. I don't want to get too far ahead of the process. Once the state approves the materials that they will sign off on as meeting the standards, our committees will look at that, figure out which one is best for Rutherford County. We can look at any budget implications and take it from there, but I would say there's going to be more discussion in the next few months.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, Mr. Vaughn.
And we look forward, we looked at digital textbooks, because really, digital, it's upgraded a lot faster than your paper books are. And I think it just seems like down the road, that's a route we're going to probably have to go. I mean, because one, you can get things more up to date. But like math and science, I don't know, I hadn't seen that many changes. I know math, 2 + 2 is still 4. I guess it was. But
you gotta model it now.
Yeah, you got to model it, you got to picture it. I mean,
listen,
there's all kinds of ways to get to 2 + 2.
I started teaching math when they had modern math. And that was the dumbest thing it ever was. And sets, teaching kids, and, I don't know why we just don't go back to basics in math and is beyond me. I guess if I was a textbook salesperson, I guess that'd be different. But I know these textbook salespersons on these textbook committees. I hope you don't let them buy just the one that has the best song and dance. Just buy the best book. So. But yeah, I think that's something we got to look at down the road.
Any other questions? Well, let's move on then to the academic calendar.
All right, so you have the academic calendar. It's included on tab 2, so for 25-26. Just as a reminder of what we have to have we have 200 days. Will you scroll to the next one? It does a good job of explaining what our days are. So we have 200 days that we have to use for teachers. Some of those are in-service days, some are discretionary days, then you have vacation days, and then days out of the calendar that are unpaid. So all these match to the documents beforehand. The committee recommended this one. We have to have, of course, 180 student days. The one conversation that was brought up, there's two. One, we always have a conversation about Veterans Day, so that we are usually in school on Veterans Day to perform a veterans program. That is very hard for our staff that are veterans members. in the school and at central office because the county is closed and banks are closed. But we feel like, at least previously, have felt that it was important to do that for our schools. The other one is September 11th. There was discussion this year about not using, or about using a teacher administrative day on September 11th. That is not my recommendation. Part of that is one of our days we have the most threats every year. It's unfortunate, but I also feel like at that point then, that if I was worried about being a safety concern, then that would be different. I feel like that disrupts the purpose of remembrance on that day anyways. And so I would rather leave it the way it is. Just know that year after year, that's the day we have the most, usually some of the most threats. And it just happened to coincide that way this year as well because of timing of other things in Georgia. But that's before you've already approved fall break at TSSAA's request. This includes Thanksgiving break for a full week. But it does, as you include Thanksgiving break, it does push your year out a little bit longer. So I believe this one goes to May 29th is the last day. Yep. We used to try to get done before Memorial Day when the calendar permits, but sometimes it just doesn't. And we can't start before August 1st for payroll purposes from county government. So.
Understand. Any other questions? All right. Let's move on to 5, ESL.
All right, so this is just discussion of additional ESL positions. I know Ms. Turnbow's here. I don't think she planned to come up here and talk. Do you have the numbers and data with you by chance? I had a feeling.
Thorough.
So this is, the motion is to approve 21 English second language positions to meet state requirements of teacher to student ratios. As Ms. Turnbow's handing those out, that is to meet it today. When we started looking at these positions to set the board agenda, it was 19 positions, and then it jumped to 21.
Wow.
That is a state requirement. It is also right now, and Ms. Turnbow knows this, it is not sustainable for us. We already added,
Do we have an extra?
Yeah, we're passing them out.
we added 25 English as a second language positions last year as part of our budget, and this is 21 additional. And so that is 46 English as a second language positions that we are adding due to increase in enrollment. For board members that are new, we have to have an ESL teacher for 1 to 35 students. So 1 to every 35. That doesn't replace the core continuity teachers. That's additional. And this, of course, as we're aware, these additional students won't be funded until next year's re-up, as you will. So we're a little bit further behind. Connected to that, and then I'll let Ms. Turnbow kind of give us an update. We're in a precarious position with our enrollment at elementary schools in the Stewart's Creek, Blackman, Browns Chapel area. So Stewart's Creek, the cap has worked. It has overcrowded Stewartsboro, so that we put another cap there, and now it is overcapped Browns Chapel. And so that school is now full. The one that has room is now Stewart's Creek.
Imagine that.
I don't feel like it is best for us to remove a cap on Stewart's Creek because that's hard for parents to say, if you move in November of 24, you get to go to Stewart's Creek, but if you moved in May of 23, sorry, you have to go to the other school. Our problem is going to be, we're probably going to have to transfer positions from Stewart's Creek to Browns Chapel, which just seems strange if you have a school capped for enrollment to transfer positions out of there because they're not full. They're still full. They're well over 1,050 kids, but they're not over 1,300 like they were. So that goes with this whole ESL conversation because we need 21 positions, but we also need to move positions around to give Browns Chapel some positions as well.
Yeah, if you look at Browns Chapel, there's 70 over, which is equivalent of they need 2 more ESL teachers than they had last year.
Dr. Sullivan and Trey, the new school that I see every day when I pass on my way to Browns Chapel, it looks like it's coming along fabulously. Is it going to be ready in time to open in 2025, 2026? I mean,
Better be.
It better be.
It better be.
concrete is already all the way up.
I'm afraid if it's not, I may not have a job.
That could be correct. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Ian, they are running I don't want to say ahead of schedule, because what you don't see is a lot of road work that has been added, some delays in our sewer approvals that are still not complete. But we still believe there's plenty of time to make it all happen.
Good.
Well, the reason I asked is because if we don't take off the cap, then it really doesn't make any sense to do that if we're going to have that new school opening in time. So the pinch is just going to be for this
We'll get it
year.
there. We'll get it there.
Yeah.
And then we can remove the caps at all the schools,
Yeah, and- Right.
once the elementary
Yeah,
school is
yeah.
up and running.
Correct.
That's the plan.
Mr. Turnbow, do you want to go over any data, how much
Sure.
growth we've had?
These are just some of the things that I look at to try to get a feel for where we are, and you're welcome to ask any questions. But the first page you can see April 13th, so toward the end of the school year, and then the most recent time that I pulled numbers last week, and then the change between the two. And then that last column over the ratio is how many students they're over that 1:35 ratio. So that goes over to the second page. And we've had, obviously, a big increase, and so people always ask, well, where are they coming from? So I put two graphs there where they've come from the last 2 years, is that first pie chart. And then the second pie chart is where have they come from since August 7th, 2024. And you can see Venezuela is our top in both years. And then that next column is where are they in our schools? Well, we have 36 schools with newcomers there. Newcomers meaning we call newcomers they've come in the last 12 months to the country. But this is even closer. We've had 354 since August 7th, the first day of school. And I can't tell you it's one school. So that's why I did this, to show you. It's 36 schools. Now, yes, Smyrna High, Laverne High are some of our highest, like usual for newcomers. But you can look in the Blackman zone, and see 9 at the elementary, 9 at the middle, and 13 at the high school. And if you go back to the first page, Blackman High is 41 students over the ratio. Blackman Middle's 43 students over the ratio. So it's all over our county. It's not just in one area like it used to be. And then I just put some other statistics that I look at to give you a feel for, like, what is an English learner like in Rutherford County schools? Well, it's very different. Yes, we have newcomers, and that makes up about 23 to 25% of what we call our English learner population. And then we also have 14% that have actually exited the program, but that we keep up with and we stay accountable for 2 years. We have 10%, which this number has gone down, thank goodness, 10% that are LTELs, meaning long-term English learners, meaning they've been with us in the program for 7 or more years. We're finally moving some of those students forward and out, so I'm happy about that. Some celebrations, as far as we get a lot of data from our WIDA scores, which now is ELPA 21. We switched standards and assessments this year. But there's a yearly test, February, March, that all of our English learners do to see if they're showing growth. This past year, we had more exit than we've ever had. And you say, well, we have more students than we've ever had, but our students are the newcomers, our new students. They're not ready to exit yet. So I think it shows that we are moving the needle with our English learners. And you can see down at the bottom of one of the pages, it says program exits. Elementary, they're always doing great with our English learners. The way they teach in elementary is really helps all English learners. Lots of visuals. They're working on teaching students to read just naturally. But when we get into middle and high, we have not had a lot of success with our English learners. But we finally are. And if you see at the bottom where it says program exits, 375 up to 439 in elementary, but 40 exits in 2023. We tripled that number to 111. And then in high school, we doubled from 58 to 98 exits. So I think there's a lot of good things happening with our English learners. And on the last page, just a couple of thoughts today about all the collaboration that's happening in our district about English learners. the bullet points there, I mean, everywhere we go, people are talking about English learners. And I will tell you, I've been in this role, I think 14 months now. Last year at this time, people were in a panic. You know, they were coming to me like, I don't know what to do. And this year, it's not that way. I really think we got ahead of things. Like with that first bullet point, 42 ESL-specific offerings at the Summer Summit. Lots of training this summer. We caught things last year, and we were prepared for them this year of what teachers need. And I do not feel that panic anymore in our district. I feel like we've got this. And it's not really a problem, it's a challenge, but I do think we are set up in this district to meet the challenge. And it starts with Dr. Chastain, who, with some of her instructional goals this year, brings in all students no matter the challenges that they have. And you just see it across our schools. So I don't see us in a panic anymore, which is a great, great feeling. And I hope that when we get to the end of the school year and we're seeing our scores and our ELPA 21 assessments and our TN Ready assessments, that our English learners are going to shine. So if you have any questions, there's lots of different things on here, random pieces of information. So if you have any questions, just let me know.
I want to thank you. This is fabulous, and I want to commend you and the entire staff. Those elementary numbers are good, but the middle and high school numbers are fabulous compared to where we were. Because I was one of those people that were quietly panicking last year. So
I was too.
So yeah, Ms. Sharp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the last page, the TISA for this school year from last year's number, is that the total amount that we get for the student, or is that just because they're ESL?
That's just because they're ESL. It's on top of the base. And that's my calculation. I got with Brian today to make sure, do you think this is correct? And he said, yes, that's pretty close, probably. But again, it's last year's students funding this year's students, and how many more do we already have this year? You know, Brian and I were talking, we'll probably bring in 30 million or more for TISA funding that we're gathering the information now for the next year's school year.
Dr. Sullivan? I have a question. So, yeah, Ms. Maxwell, how much funding do we get from the federal side? And we talk a lot about TISA and the state and local, but how much funding do we get from the federal side?
So Title III funding, we got about 1.1 million this year. And that's just for Title III, and it does go off our October 1 count, and it's probably a few years delayed. I'm not sure how many years. And then we do get, because we are receiving so many immigrants, we do get an immigrant grant. I actually got that last week, which is an additional $26,000. And I'm using that solely to catch up with the curriculum purchases in Title III. And I'll tell you, what Title III is used for, I have 6 positions in there. Benefits, retirement, all the things. And honestly, that takes up $600,000 of my Title III right off the bat. So more than half to fund those positions. It's the 2, well, hopefully 2. I've got 1 Arabic parent liaison, and I'm hoping for 2, if you guys approve. 3 instructional coaches and 1 EA that's at Smyrna Primary that was put in there years ago, and I just haven't had an open spot to move it to GP. After that, we buy all the curriculum for our English learners through Title III, and it's a lot of curriculum. I mean, we're talking about a K-12 program with multiple different levels of curriculum that we buy, and I spend about $350,000 to $400,000 on curriculum. So between those 6 positions and curriculum, my budget's almost gone. And Title III is really for extras. Like, I get to do a little bit of extra, like we do some parent ESL classes with that money. We get to do ESL night school at Smyrna High. I want to do more night school, but I can't afford it. It's about $18,000 a year. I want to do more professional development, but the more that I have to fund in Title III, because TISA funding may not cover everything, the less extras that I get to do for those supports that really support our whole community. TISA funding, we did some digging last year to try to figure out, is the TISA funding for English learners really covering it? I think Mr. Tidwell asked for that, it was around December. And we probably break even with what we're spending now. But what TISA funding doesn't give us is, like I said, everything that I'm paying for out of Title III and our translators. We are hurting a lot not having enough translators in our district. And Dr. Sullivan mentioned we do have a state ratio, 1:35 for ESL teachers, but we have no ratio for translations or EAs. What it says in ESL rule is that you should have enough for meaningful communication. And so that's very, it's your decision what's meaningful. But I will tell you, we have schools. For example, Siegel Middle School, if you notice, they are one of the schools who've gone up, and they don't have a Spanish speaker in their building. They've gone up to 82 English learners at Siegel Middle. And while that's a smaller number than, say, Smyrna or Laverne High School or middle school, they are not prepared, and they have a really tough time communicating with their families. So we have some schools that could really use another EA to have better communication with our families, and TISA does not provide that.
Ms. Maxwell,
Yes, Mr. Ellis.
We've been in conversations a lot, and with Dr. Chastain and with Mr. and Mark Goulian about what funding can we get additional to help cover and support the ESL, and that has been brought up multiple occasions, has been the translators. And I've been in communication with the Department of Education, I forgot his name, but anyways, but the one thing that I would like for us to consider as a board, as part of our legislative agenda and bring in a resolution, is to get funding for these additional translators. But we will need from you the funding, how much it will look like, and so that we can have dollars and figures to add to the resolution. And the other thing I would like and implore upon the board is for us to look into a resolution to we look up to the state to help us to get funding, but we need to start to look at the federal government to help us get funding. I know I've gone to Washington, D.C. twice already, last year and this summer, trying to bring awareness of what's happening here with the influx of our ESL students and trying to raise awareness. But we also need to start advocating at the federal government and getting our legislatures that are up there to help bring funding to help with this program and generate more revenue in their title, to add to Title III funds. I know this past, I think it was in April or May, I put together a roundtable and I met with Marsha Blackworm's team, including with several other school board members, and we brought this issue that we are seeing increases across the board, especially in Middle Tennessee with our migrant population, and for them to help us with funding. So I implore upon the board for us to look into that and for us to bring resolutions and to advocate from the federal side to get us funding and add more to the pot in Title III for this.
Sorry, Ms. Sharp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you give us, not an exact amount, but a range of what the translator's job pays? I have several Arabic friends.
It is R102 on the pay scale, which starts out at what, maybe $16, $17 an hour. And of course, it grows as their time in the district. It is about $1 up from a Gen Ed EA. So the SPED EAs and the ESL EAs get paid just slightly more than the Gen Ed EAs. But yeah, if they want to look at R102 on the website, they can.
$17.40 an hour.
17.
Ms. Mack?
Yes, Mr. Vaughn.
One thing I guess that bothers me about BSL, Dr. Sullivan, is, it takes 5 years for an ESL kid, I think, to, once they come in the U.S., to where they can get to where they could be considered proficient. But we're required to test them after the second year. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing about it is, our county is impacted more than any other county in the state of Tennessee because of our growth in ESL. So it affects our scores on our schools more so than anything. I don't know what can be done about that, but to me, that's just an irregularity that is punishing our schools. And, yeah, I'd like to see us do something about if what we can do and what we need to do.
Dr. Sullivan?
Yeah, we tried that last year. You're exactly right. I pulled up the stats today just to compare to other districts. We have a large, even though Knox County is about 10,000 more students than us, we have a much larger EL population. We have a larger EL population than Hamilton does. Everywhere outside of Metro, Nashville, and Shelby, we have a larger EL population. And what's different is that ours, as you mentioned, is growing. Unfortunately, I think Mrs. Rosales talked about it last year with the commissioner. The department's not willing to make any changes to that at all.
They're not. It got shut down. We had a bill, and they were gracious enough to allow it to present it. I had to speak on it, but it died.
Well, and Mr. Vaughn's exactly right with the research. Here we are testing kids who are in their second year of learning another language. So it's like, what are you testing them on? Are you testing them on standards, or are you testing them on how well they know the English language? And if you're testing them on in year 2 and year 3 and letting it count, you're actually testing them, kind of discriminating them against, I'm in the midst of learning a language and you're expecting me to be able to take this test in English like all the native speaking peers.
Yeah.
So, you know, and like he said, 5 years, 5 to 7 years is what it takes to truly be bilingual. And our kids, if they start with us in kindergarten, they're exiting by 4th grade on average. It's the ones who come in from other places.
It's not fair.
Yeah, you know, that haven't got the instruction like they get in Rutherford County, that take a little longer, so.
And I will say with my experience in the schools, the kids from Venezuela, well, depending on what grade level they come in, those children already have a foundation. So it's a matter of the language barrier that they're not able to communicate and comprehend. But then when you've got the kids in the other countries, like in Mexico, Honduras, and Guatemala, their education is all over the place. They're not all coming in at the same baseline, regardless of where they're at. So it just puts a burden on us in that sense and try to figure out, which I give you guys all kudos, to figure out how do we keep those, make it all an even playing field and come and meet them, the kids where they're at. And that's why I feel like at this year, we need to look at the state and the federal to help us with this, with providing more resources.
Mr. Tidwell.
Dr. Sullivan, I know that our growth was, a large percentage of our growth last year was ESL. Do you know what the percentage is?
Got it.
You want to show them?
You
the
can,
last
go
10
for
years?
it.
I didn't put that on there.
That's okay.
The last 10 years, our growth, we've grown 11,600 students, 5,800 are ESL students. So 50% of our growth the last 10 years has been English learners.
Has there been a sharper increase in the last couple of years?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
The last 2 to 3 years. I don't know if it's like they heard I got this position and they all came. That's what it feels like.
I wanted to give Ms. Turnbow credit. I was over ESL and curriculum and instruction. Ms. Turnbow was not in that position, and she has done an absolutely amazing job in organizing, and not to speak negative of anybody else, but organizing, streamlining, advocating, and making sure it was a district-wide program, not a school-based program. I also think the board deserves credit because you guys have approved high school specialists, instructional coaches, and put resources into what our kids need. So, thank you.
You know, I'll tell you, we need to, people just need to realize that we've got the greatest school system anywhere in the state of Tennessee. And this is just an issue that we're facing. And instead of running away from it, we're looking at it as an opportunity to solve a problem. And these kids deserve an education. I think, gosh, how would we feel if we were put in another country that doesn't speak English? I mean, I'm amazed they do as well as they do.
And like Ms. Rosales says, a lot are coming from Venezuela and they're well educated. You can see one of the stats. I did 285 high school transcripts last year, putting them from like the Spanish to English, and a lot of them were from Venezuela. So they're coming very well educated. and they are able to catch on so much faster when they have an educated background. And that's why we did the ESL College Night, is we knew some of those kids, if they had stayed in their home country, they would have been going to college. So we wanted to make sure they knew, hey, there's still a chance for you to be successful even though you're here. And that just helps society as a whole if everyone's well educated.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next is legal.
So first you have manila folder, and I believe Ms. Ridley emailed earlier last week. Board's been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. The student was expelled for possession of 2 knives in his backpack, and according to policy 6.318, the board may deny admissions of any student except those in state custody, and when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion. My recommendation is to deny admission for that one.
Okay. Next, we have use of facilities.
So I just wanted to discuss retro reviews real quick. That's something Mr. Vaughn has brought up the last 2 meetings. Policy 3.206, community use of facilities, that requires that people that are requesting to use facilities shall be made to the office of the principal at least 30 days prior to the use. So they have to do 30 days before. We strive to work with our community members to have access to our facilities, to be good community partners, but really this needs to be enforced at the school level so that the school level board members and then the legal department can work through that. I wanted to kind of go over why we have retro review a little bit though. A lot of it is internal. So as you all know, we meet twice a month usually. We have, in the past, every board meeting agenda has to be submitted to our office 2 weeks before the meeting. And so for a community, they may be meeting that 30-day deadline, but it is on a 2-week earlier deadline to be able to get onto the board agenda. And that's just so that we have time to process it. These requests, in order for them to have a retro review, they have already turned in all their necessary information. So certificate of occupancy, in-kind agreement, legal information. The only thing missing is that formality. I hate to say formality, but they're missing the formality of the board approval. That's what you see the retro reviews for. We hopefully are going to address that. I talked with Ms. Williams last week, and she agreed to let these be submitted 1 week before the board meeting. So this will be the very last thing every single time before the board agenda is published. That should lessen the retro review. If you see a retro review, though, it is truly they've already had the information submitted. It's just gotten caught in between the timelines of board meetings.
I guess my only question, my only concern, I think, is if some of the use of facilities, if these people were allowed to go ahead and start using them before we got the insurance and all.
We already have it, yep.
If a kid got seriously hurt, we would would get sued. I guess I just want to protect us from that standpoint.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, moving on. Number 10, engineering and construction.
So this is some good news. Tab 4, request for Laverne High School Annex Bid 3766 on Thursday, September 26, 2024. Purchasing, engineering, and construction received bids for the site work and construction of the annex for Laverne High. All bids have been reviewed. Engineering and construction recommends Robert S. Biskin and Company, $36,989,000 base bid, plus alternate number 1, which is $90,000 for a total, and that should be $37 million. Nope, you're right. No, 37. For a total bid of making sure I have this right. Somebody needs to check my math. That's not right. Should be 37 million and 79,000. I'll have that corrected by Tuesday. So 37 million and 90,000.
So the total request is 37 million?
Yes, for that actual bid, because you see that the base bid, or did we have the first number incorrect? Can you look at that real quick? Let's look at the bid sheet real quick. The bids were amazing because they were all within, was it 1% of each other, Trey? We had 3 bids. Let me go to the sheet real quick.
The 36,430,000 is correct.
Okay.
So the number that I have wrong is the 36,989. Should be 36,340. Plus the 90 gives us 36,430, which that number is correct, the 36,430.
36,430 is correct. Okay. So that first number should be 36,340. Okay.
My apologies.
Yeah, I was going back and looking at the overall bids. Again, it's on the tab sheet, but it was amazing how close they truly were.
Low bid is 36,430 and high bid was 37,044.
Yep. You also have, as attached as the tab, just a reminder of our updated 5-year plan. We'll be looking at that again in November, December. We are right in line with going with Laverne High School's addition. Couple months behind, but we hope to be able to have this approved Tuesday. The way the calendar fell, September ends tomorrow, so it's a little bit backwards. We had hoped to have this agenda set so that we could have it approved tomorrow, Tuesday, and then usually the last Thursday of the month would have been Health and Ed tomorrow, but tomorrow's the first, the way this month fell. And so this is going to go all the way back to Health and Ed on October 29th, then Budget and Finance on November 8th, with full County Commission November 15th. So tried to hit that deadline to get it a month sooner and just didn't make it. And then you see the construction-related cost, FF&E design's already been funded. We just included that because we like people to know exactly what it's cost.
Yes, Ms. Darby.
Do we know how many seats this is going to add to Laverne High?
It will get them to 2,500 per the board's request.
Yeah, where are they currently at?
When we started this, they were around 1,900 to 2,000 like the other high schools. It's 100,000 square feet, very similar to Smyrna, Oakland, and Riverdale. All the additions have been right at 100,000 square feet. The interior renovations vary per school based on programs of need, based on conversation with the principal's request. So we do have, like at Oakland or Riverdale, we took their old auditorium because we built a new auditorium and created 3 art rooms out of it. They did a lot of renovation in the cafeteria area because the CTE wanted to expand the culinary arts programs. We're doing similar type things at Laverne. CTE programs, we're taking down their glass greenhouse and going to build them a barn for small animal. That's where the direction Dr. Hatchett and CTE wanted to go. So there's a lot of those kind of things that go on internally as well as the addition. So there's probably another 40,000 square feet of renovation, which is comparable to the other programs.
Ms. Rosales.
Oh, I was just going to say that the design is similar to, the layout is similar to Smyrna's annex. That's what I was.
It is an addition with a lecture hall. This one is 3-story, where Smyrna is basically 2, except for the small area underneath where we were able to capture a restroom and a locker room. But there is more lower level because, and it has to do with the topography of the site and the location that it's going. So yes, the addition is still right in that 100,000 square feet compared to the others. And if you looked at it, it is very comparable to Smyrna, but it is much shorter and it is truly 3 stories. We have classrooms on all 3 floors.
Any other? Yes, Mr. Vaughn.
You touched on something, Trey, that in these expansions that have happened at each one of the high schools, there's been different programs as far as updating the base building or the original buildings. That's what, and so each principal had some input into that, because I've tried to visit some of the schools and get up to date with what was going on and noticed a lot of improvements to some of them, but still some deficiencies in others. And I know trying to compare schools to schools to schools is not fair, but I do know bright and shiny does have an effect. So there has been the opportunity for these principals to update their schools.
all three principals were involved in the design process. And by design, I mean they gave us the programs that they wanted to see improved.
Yeah,
And they gave us the programs that they wanted to see added.
right.
Then we took that information and incorporated it
Within.
as financially
within the
solvent as we
within-
could as to whether it was in the new part
Or the old.
or the old part. And part of that had to do with how they structured their classes. Some schools took the opportunity to reorient their schools. In other words, because they had been added on to numerous times, I'm going to use the term, there wasn't a lot of forethought. So they have English, math, and science on this hall, and they have English, math, and science on another hall. With these renovations, they had the opportunity to cluster English,
Right,
math, better, to make their school flow better. And with that, we took that information along with the programs that they were asking for and tried to utilize that existing footprint as much as we could. One of the things Oakland and Riverdale's problem had was their guidance area. You had to go through the front office, and then you had to turn parents loose to get the guidance, which was actually between the library and the cafeteria. So we actually moved that guidance area to the front across the vestibule and made them a new guidance area, so now they can transfer students and parents and keep them all inside that secure lobby.
Entrance for you right there.
Yes. So there's things like that, little tweaks that they ask for that we were able to accommodate and give them, trying to maximize the renovation part because that's typically cheaper than new construction. So we were trying to, there's no perfect way to do that with these 1972 buildings that have been added onto 4 times. But we did try that,
Yeah,
yes.
and that was, I think that was the reason I was wanting to touch on that just a little bit, is that knowing the design of Oakland and Riverdale, 1972 models, and then Smyrna and Laverne being 1986,
87.
88, that was one of the first challenges that the county commission faced back then. And I remember the site in Laverne was an extremely difficult site to build on, to make them as parallel as we could back at that time. Football stadiums, tracks, all that kind of stuff. And so that was the reason, when you started talking about it being a 3-story addition, I can see why, because of the construction cost originally and the limited footprint there. So anyway, it's going to be interesting to see, but thank you.
And while we're on that, Monday, December 2nd is the official opening day for students at Smyrna High School's addition. We will be discussing, typically that's the Monday after Thanksgiving, so it'd be difficult to do something that weekend, so we'll get with the school like we've done at a number of our annexes, call it a soft opening. Let the students and teachers get moved in, and then that next weekend or the next, we would have something, for you all in the public.
Absolutely. We want to celebrate those because they're game changers.
That is Monday, December the 2nd will be the first day for students.
I have a special request for the celebration that the culinary arts will have a special treat for us. Since they're going to have a big.
Dr. Sullivan.
Yeah, just real quick, since this will go to county commission, just so that everyone knows kind of what our strategy is. Every time we go ask for funding, one of the questions is, why are you building a building when other entities can build them cheaper? And so something that we highlight as we're building multi-decade structures. And so we're looking at a 50 to 75-year building compared to a 10, 15, 20-year building. And that is no disrespect to the schools that build that. If I were running a school that had a 10-year contract, I would not be building a 50 or 100 million or a 50 or 100-year building. And so just so that we're all on the same page, we're looking to, that is a wise use of taxpayer money for us, is to make sure that we are funding buildings that are going to last. That is a question I get every time we go and ask for funding, is why are you building brick and mortar and not doing just some frame buildings? And we're matching to that.
Well, I will say, you opened it up. we are building cheaper than the counties around us that are building brick and mortar. And if you go look at their buildings, and I have nothing against their buildings, I would like to build some nice architecturally looking things as well. Our buildings are function over facade and longevity. And this project came in at $350 a square foot, which is actually cheaper than Smyrna came in 2 years ago. Oh, wow. Our newer projects are running in the $400 a square foot range. That's just today's market, which I just still can't believe we're there. And it's not just us, it's across the board. I mean, and I'm not pointing fingers at them, but I still say we put our money for the students and the longevity of the buildings, and I'll put my building up against anybody's.
I agree. Any other comments? Okay, moving on. Number 2.
This is request for Simon Springs casework and restroom renovations bid 3770 and 3771 on Tuesday, September 24th. Purchasing Engineering Construction received bids for the casework and selected renovations for Phase 2 of Simon Springs, formerly Laverne Primary. All bids have been reviewed. Engineering Construction recommends Steve Ward & Associates case bid of $237,723 and bid for selected renovations to Romock Incorporated for $715,000. For procurement of furniture, equipment, and technology, we are requesting the reallocation of $600,000 from Westbrook Woods to this project, and we'll discuss that one next. What this gets at, Mrs. Darby has brought up several times about renovating some of our older buildings. If we decide to retrofit, and we're not talking about this at all, but if we needed to turn Simon Springs into a full functioning elementary school, this will have a complete renovation with new casework, new painting, new flooring, everything that would allow that functionality. So, pretty neat, and your team has done a lot of it, so thank you, Trey, for your team.
Okay, number 3, and I'm not optimistic, but
All right, Westbrook's Woods renovation design and city review. Met with the city for several hours today. So some of the things that there's a couple of things that are contingent. One is that the basement being in the floodplain would need full encapsulation according to the city. The other part is a traffic study that we have talked about, where Commissioner Chair of Health and Ed and I met with the city today, and I won't disclose a whole lot of those conversations, but it was a good meeting to try to get collaborative focus back on the focus. I don't feel great about it. I still feel like that building is a need for the cost for what we paid for it compared to the cost of making sure we built something ground up, but it is going to take quite a lengthy amount of time to do. It is a state highway, so we will have to deal with TDOT if we have to make any kind of modifications to the entrance or exit of that facility, which would add more timelines. And so, Trey, anything else you want to hit on that other than we're in a holding pattern right now, and I don't love that, but that's why you see the thing above it was to move $600,000 from Westbrook's Woods out of 189 to fund this while we develop a long-term solution for this building.
With the required changes to the facility that the city is going to be requesting, the budget that was given is now going to be double. We looked at utilizing this facility from the beginning as partially for office space and partially for students. Due to needs, it's all being designed for all students. When that takes place, it changes the classification of the building, which opens the door for the city to begin to make requests. They do not like the idea that we would potentially be utilizing buses in this area. There's been discussion about purchasing additional property and making a loop around the building. There's some taking care of things that were allowed to take place in the past. The sewer actually crosses an adjacent property. They would like it back on our property, which means they're going to require a new sewer line and manholes to tie into their existing service. The federal FEMA guidelines for addressing below the floodplain is 1 foot. We're there. The city requires 2 feet. That's allowable by the federal government. They cannot be less stringent, but they are allowed to be more stringent. There's some maneuvering that we can do to possibly minimize that effect, but it's still a process you have to go through. The biggest hurdle that has hurt us is we've spent almost 4 months now dealing with the city's request and the additional hoop and the additional planning commission, board of zoning appeals and all those kind of things. And we're probably 3 to 4 months away at best to have them in a position where it would be satisfied and we would have a set of drawings to go out for bid. And all of those recommendations are going to more than double what we had as a budget.
Did we budget 2.5?
Well, the actual construction was $1.5 million. The last budget we received was around 3.2.
Oh, wow.
And I could see it depending upon what that traffic study says, depending upon what the city wants, requires. The tap for water, sewer, some of those other things that they're going to require. We've got budgets, but until we get completely through this permitting process, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like.
And I do want to thank Mayor McFarland and members of his staff for our meeting today. It was a tough meeting, and again, I'm not going to share the details, but it was a tough meeting, but I believe we started moving down some roads, and Mr. Lee and I have not had a chance to talk yet since then, but I don't envision a lot of those type of things changing. That is their requirements, and those are their requirements.
Ms. Sharp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lee, in your best guess, if we have port worker strike, is that going to interfere in any of our building or anything like that?
I'd say at our current location, probably not right away. Most of our materials are here. Where a lot of our materials are is in our structures. And our structure, that's metal. The ports is small components, parts. Most of our, if you actually go by Beatty, fortunately, we have our HVAC equipment. It's already sitting on site. Middle Tennessee Electric, I just finalized their final design with us. The transformer's about $50,000, but it's sitting on their yard. A lot of those things that would have components in them for Oakland, Riverdale, and Smyrna, we're in good shape. We're kind of beyond those. Now, if it goes on very long, it could actually maybe affect the front end of Laverne. But I think by the time we get to that point and we get started and we get to needing those products, I think that if it's not an abnormally long strike, I think it could be resolved before we got there.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Vaughn.
Mr. Lee, you're familiar with what the battle we fought at Oakland, I think, when we made some additions having to deal with the city. And, since it's county property, we really, I don't know whether we want to go down that road or not, but really, we could really tell them to shove it, couldn't we? I mean, all this stuff, all this money. I mean, we've been down, we fought that battle before, and it's county property. And if we really wanted to, our attorney's not here, but it'd be interesting to see that, I don't want to do that. But again, they're costing us a fortune. So, you still got notes, I'm sure.
I will take the board's guidance and Mr. Reed's legal advice, which is what I communicated today.
Shove it, is it?
Yeah, what part?
Tax forward.
I communicated that a little bit.
I got you.
But I
Tell
don't know,
Mr.
we're
Reed,
direct.
where does that classify that?
We've tried to help them out when there's give and take with the situation with the city and the county because it's a unique situation. We have some county schools smack dab in the middle of the city.
We're doing all the
Every
giving.
time we go to do something, it's temperamental. But I do think it's really good that he was able to meet with the mayor, and we are trying to do. Communication has been, what was conveyed to me, communication has been the thing that they felt like was the most lacking. Whether that was intentional, I probably not, but as long as we keep the lines of communication open, I think we might be able to, I'm always going to be optimistic that we can fix this and that we can get the schools built that we need and at as little cost, extra cost as possible. But
Ms. Maxwell?
yes, Ms.
So I have a question. So when do you think is the tentative timeline of when Miss Springs will open? Because it was supposed to be opening this year, and it's not opening.
Simon Springs?
Simon Springs.
It's open.
Sorry.
It's open, it's just not fully operational yet. We don't have the alternative
Okay.
school there yet.
Never mind.
We have everything else there.
But what about
Alternative
the
school and
alternative
ESL.
school? Because I know the alternative school,
Yes.
there were some issues with road study. The city wanted us to do some kind of.
That's West Brooks Woods, that's the other one.
Woods, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm sorry. I got the names confused. I'm really thinking of Westbrook Schools, sorry. So when is the timeline?
2 years? 2 years probably at this point.
If we continue on this path, it will not open this year, and I have serious doubts it would open next year.
So if the longer that we delay this, and I know we're looking at costs today, is there a potential that these costs will increase the further we delay the project and open?
Everything is going to continue to go up. There is no level off, there is no going down.
So even though we're getting a quote today of this amount, it's more than likely going to be up.
Good for probably about 2 months.
Wow. So we really don't know how much we're going to be spending in this project at all.
Once we get approved drawings, I can give you an accurate budget. I'm guessing at this point. At that time, I will have a good feel for what the cost in our market area is, and I can give you an accurate estimate.
And the drawings won't come to us until you get this piece resolved, correct?
That is correct.
And that's the holdup to get to where we need with the drawing is all this, what you
Yes.
just spoke about.
Yes.
Mr. Tidwell.
About the encapsulation, does this have a basement other than the basement we walked in, but does it have a crawl space underneath that?
No.
Then they're wanting to encapsulate the basement? Correct. I mean, they're wanting to
It's
encapsulate the bottom floor.
Yes. But it's not as intrusive as it sounds. But there is some work that will have to be done there, and we had anticipated doing most of that already. So I think it's something we can work through.
I can ask you about the flood too. Could you speak to that again? FEMA requires 1 foot, and you said the city's asking for 2.
Yes. So in their regulation it's a protection thing. And I'm going to pick an elevation because I, off the top of my head, don't remember what the elevation is there. But let's say the elevation's 389 is the new FEMA map, floodplain for this downtown area of Murfreesboro, which they change it every couple of years. But this year, let's call it 389. If you have a building that is 390 or less, you have to make this concession. So they're going a foot above. So it's not the floodplain is 389, but if you're 390 or less, you have to address it. The city's saying it's 391. It's another foot higher than FEMA. And they are allowed by law to do that.
Is that just a permit thing? I mean, like, what is?
They require you to do certain things to protect, it's to protect the insurance companies.
Where they met, so we got to get an elevation certificate, right? And
I've already done that.
all right, is that number, is that from the bottom floor of that back?
No, sir. That's from where your building touches that elevation line. That's where you have to actually have a land surveyor. He has to get it, because elevations are not straight lines. They're contoured. They're circular. If that line misses, on this particular building, 98% of the building does not touch that line. There is a small, southwest corner of the building touches that imaginary line. So we have to address it.
Mr. Bott.
A couple of observations. Caleb talking about that, and I don't mean to bring up something, but I think everybody's been aware of what's happening
east of here. That 100-year floodplain is a good benchmark, but what, the longer we're on the face of this earth, the longer this country is here, the more times we're going to hear this 500-year flood issue. And so my experience has been to really take that into consideration. And there's not a lot of times between a 100-year floodplain and a 500-year. Trey, you may say this, sometimes it's a foot, sometimes it's 2.5, 3 feet. So all you're talking about, I mean, it is a capital cost on the front end to pad a building up higher, you know, but if it saves somebody 50 years down the road, I mean, if we're constructing, and I think we are, 50, 75, 100-year buildings to be utilized, right? When you spread that capital cost out over that many years, it's probably insignificant to take that into consideration. So that would be one thing. Yes, it is aggravating. I learned a lesson the hard way 25 years ago. I thought I was going to circumvent the system, and I did. And 3 years into owning the property, we had one of those 100-year events, and I lost a $5,000 central heat and air unit. So it would have made me money if I'd have gone ahead and done it on the front end. That's just a little example. What I really want to ask you, Trey, or you said you felt like all the parameters that are getting asked right now, that where we can't even get into that real good design phase to try to muster a number right now. How many square feet's in that building? And if you did double the cost, where are we there? And I think you know where I'm going with this conversation, or what I'm going to ask next.
I think what you're trying to lead to is it becoming economically unfeasible to stay with this building?
Right.
My professional opinion is we're approaching that point. Yes, sir, we're getting very close.
So then the challenge may be that we look at a different utilization.
That building, possibly, to do something else with? I don't know. I know we need.
I think once we get a little bit further, get a little bit
I don't
more.
want to throw good money after bad.
Don't disagree.
Right.
And I think that's a conversation that we're probably not too far from having.
All right, that's what I want to know. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank y'all. Number 4.
Thurman Francis Arts Academy Arts Trail concrete request. Principal Dr. Mark Gagne is requesting to have concrete installed over the gravel arts trail. Project is being donated by Smyrna Ready Mix for the material and HMA for the labor. Engineering and construction has reviewed the request and has no objection. Request is at no cost to the board.
Any discussion?
I think that's great. I think we need to hats off to Smyrna Red Mix. They've donated so much stuff for our schools, and Dal Smith, he done it this morning, you know, all the work they did, and I just wish more and more local companies would be involved like this, because, I mean, to me, that's what community is all about. So hats off to Sprinter Ready Mix.
I agree. They've been great partners. Number 4.
Next, we have Wilson Elementary School requests, so to accept the Richard Siegel grant. Principal Angela Barnes requesting permission to accept the awarded Richard Siegel grant for $8,975 to fund outside recreational play equipment. Engineering Construction has reviewed the request and finds no objection. The project's at no cost to the board.
Okay, financial matters.
This is the creation and incorporation of the County Schools Foundation. A request has been made by a board member to create and establish the County Schools Foundation with the primary objective of raising and managing funds to support the educational needs of Rutherford County schools. Foundation would ensure additional financial resources for student programs, teacher development, classroom technology, infrastructure improvements, and other educational initiatives. The incorporation of this foundation would benefit Rutherford County Schools 51,000 plus pre-K through 12 students, grade students, and serve as a venue for other foundations and corporations to make donations, positively impacting the school system as a whole.
I'm excited to finally try to get this off the ground, and I anticipate this being a committee assignment and always having someone from the board on there. But thank you, Mr. Rosales, for trying to get this jump started. Any questions, discussion? Yes, Ms. Darby.
When the attorney puts this together, will they lay out kind of the procedure for however the board is going to be comprised and things of that nature?
All that he's going to be working on is on the incorporation of the actual foundation. The committee side of it, that's up to us as a policy.
And we're modeling
We
ours.
get to decide that.
And we're modeling ours after the city schools, so we will be in collaboration with them. And we've got some outside partners that want to, that care about this county, that want to help us as well, too. So we can sit down and we can try to figure out how we want this. It's
So
on
this
us.
is just for the incorporation itself, not for the board approving how the foundation is going?
Well, this is to get the ball rolling, because it's going to take a very long time to get this started so that we can actually get a foundation so that we can start raising funds. And the paperwork it's pretty lengthy. And so this is to get this started. Now, the chair has every right to create a committee of whatever choosing she will like, and whoever she wants to appoint as far as is concerned over the committee of particular or whatever committee that is there. Now, the particulars of who's going to be compromised of the board for that committee, that's up to us. And we can put that into policy and say how many people can be involved and who can be involved. But as far as getting this off the ground, that is in the court of the legal system, because without this, we cannot form a committee to create an avenue for us to generate donations.
Any other questions? Okay. Next, we have, we have the resolutions.
Mr. Reed is not with us tonight. He'll be with us tomorrow. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and kind of go from there.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Moffett. I work with Mr. Reed.
Hope he pays you well.
First resolution is urging full criminal prosecution for threats against schools. States whereas the Rutherford County Board of Education, hereinafter Board of Education, has experienced a concerning increase of threats by students and individuals against schools. And whereas threats against schools create an atmosphere of fear among students, faculty, and staff, causing significant disruption to teachers' ability to teach and students' abilities to focus on instruction. And whereas the Rutherford County school system has over 50,000 students and the disruption of school results in the loss of valuable education time costing millions of dollars to the county. And whereas, as an example, Oakland High Schools recently lost a half day of instruction due to a false threat. And whereas false threats against another school recently resulted in multiple parents picking up their students from school when school had just started. And whereas the state legislature has previously enacted legislation providing for the loss of driver's licenses to students and individuals making threats against schools. Whereas a greater deterrent is needed to curb the number of threats against schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Education this day in October 2024 as follows. The Board of Education urges the District Attorney for Rutherford County to prosecute students and individuals making threats involving schools to the full extent allowed at law, including but not limited to criminal penalties and incarceration. These penalties would be in addition to the loss of driver's license privileges to students by students and individuals making such threats.
I spoke with our DA, Jennings Jones, and he agrees. He's been frustrated. He knows we're frustrated, and he agrees with this resolution. He knows this is coming, and I hope that all of our families and parents or students are listening to this, because we do mean business. This has gotten way out of hand. It's not just here in Murfreesboro. It's across the state, across the nation. But this is a good resolution, and we will be prosecuting.
I have a question. How does this resolution come into play with a new change in the law that was changing how we handle assessing threats? Because it used to be, we used to, under the old, before the change in law, it was all zero tolerance regardless. And then now the change in the law, you have to look at it case by case to determine if it's real or not. And if it was not a real incident, then you don't do it, like it's different. So how does this play into the change in law that just happened this past General Assembly? I'm just curious.
So I think that's a great question, and Mr. Reed will be available tomorrow.
My interpretation is it would be completely the same. The Sheriff's Department's the one that files charges, not us. So whatever they determine whether it's a threat or not.
So the law enforcement are the ones who are going to determine at the assessment whether it's real or not.
Yeah, we have our own internal threat assessment,
But that's separate.
that would be separate
Okay.
from the criminal prosecution portion.
Okay.
Thank you. You want to go with the, any other questions? Okay, second resolution, please.
This is a resolution in opposition to the construction of a trash convenience center to property at Laverne Middle School and Laverne Lake Elementary. Whereas the Rutherford County Board of Education, hereinafter Board of Education, understands there has been some discussion of locating a trash convenience center to property at Laverne Middle School and Laverne Lake Elementary. And whereas the Board of Education is in desperate need of property in the north end of Rutherford County to accommodate future growth in that area, and whereas the property at Laverne Middle School and Laverne Lake Elementary was acquired for school purposes, and whereas it is difficult for the Board of Education to locate property in the north end of Rutherford County for purchase, whereas the remaining land at Laverne Middle School and Laverne Lake Elementary could serve as a 9th grade academy and for other buildings to meet the critical needs of the school system in the north end of the county. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Education this blank day of October 2024 as follows. The Board of Education opposes the location of a trash convenience center at Laverne Middle School and Laverne Lake Elementary.
Any questions, comments?
Oh, I got a dozen.
Yes, Mr. Vaught.
Where'd this come from?
I asked Mr. Reed to write it.
Well, somebody bring me up to date. I don't, who's asked for the land? I assume the county. Mayor Carl.
My understanding is the current convenience center in Laverne is on city property.
Right.
And they have leased it to the county.
Right.
The mayor of Laverne has said that it is no longer a good location. The traffic is backed up. They've had some head-on collisions on that road. So they were not going to extend the lease any further beyond this next year.
So the mayor has asked
The county to find
the
somewhere else to
convenience
put the
center be moved
convenience
in.
center, correct.
Okay.
So my understanding is the city does not have land that they feel they could lease for those purposes. And the county, what I have been told, does not have funding to purchase land for a new convenience center.
Talk to the city about that? I assume getting into negotiating with the city. I mean, that's the county and the city to get to it, but they got a lot of tracks.
Suggested that they use that property. There are other property, pieces of property in
Our
Laverne.
area that they could move the dump to, but,
Convenience center.
Well, we have a difference of opinion on what that is.
Well, we had to rebrand them 30 years ago, Ms. Sharp. I'm just, I'm a little defensive. I was telling you that. I know all about it. I remember when the lease was signed.
you're more than welcome to be defensive, but, nonetheless.
Well, I mean, it's for the
Yes.
city, it's for the city residents to take their trash to. So this is a city convenience, it's for those taxpayers.
So I'm just a little confused as to why the city doesn't try to, is the city not trying to find another piece of property or?
It's the county's responsibility to find them.
Okay, so if it's the county's responsibility, the county owns this property, then, so that's the reason it's here. Is that the reason it's here? Because the city doesn't want to furnish the property, is that right?
The city-
I'm getting the furniture.
Probably, yeah.
The
Okay.
city has, I've had conversations with Mayor Cole.
Okay.
The city doesn't own anything that they feel would work for these purposes. The mayor has given them some other locations that the city doesn't own that would work that are not on school property.
Okay.
So there are other options
I mean, I
potentially
can see-
available.
Okay, I see both sides of this right here. This is, as you say, a county.
Issue, but it's serving the citizens of Laverne, so it's kind of a win-win for both entities.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, it's a 20 plus,
Not have a place to take your garbage.
it's 20 plus, they go to Smyrna, where they can go down to Smyrna, but as a 20 plus year
Okay.
citizen, and they have a brand new one in Smyrna, as a 20 plus year citizen of Laverne and an almost 7-year member of the school board, it is not the school board's responsibility to, in my opinion, y'all can disagree if y'all want to, it won't be the first time. It's not our responsibility to provide that property to them, especially since we have so many needs on the north end. I agree,
No,
that
I
probably
get
needs to
that.
be moved
I'm just
somewhere
trying,
else,
I'm
but.
trying to get why is it even laying here?
Well-
That's what I'm getting at. So it's been around the horn, so to speak. The mayor Laverne doesn't have a piece of property they're willing to donate, give, lease again. They're running the county off, I shouldn't say. But you said they couldn't expand that site and it was safety concerns. So Mayor Cole wants it gone. Okay, so the county's got to come up with a place to put the thing. This is the only county-owned property on the north end of the county. In that it's not, is the county owns some property somewhere
The
else?
county does not own this property, the school board owns this property.
Well, but the county funded it. We're all in the deal
No, the county
together.
did not fund this piece of property.
The county did not fund it. The county didn't buy this.
So now we're going to get into. So the county is our funding body. So in that aspect, they have to approve, when we go to them and say we need money for a school, they have to approve that funding mechanism. When you're talking about the conversations that ensue publicly regarding public money and what that money is to be spent on, the discussions around the property for Laverne Lake Elementary and Laverne Middle were for educational and school building purposes.
I agree with that.
So by law, the property is supposed to be deeded to the board. Now, the board could vote to give the land to the county, sell the land to the county for other outside of educational purposes if the board so choose to do that. I asked for this resolution because I am not in favor of putting a trash convenience center, whatever you would like to call it, a place where people come to get rid of their trash next to any of our schools. I think it brings unnecessary issues with it. I think there are some other areas that could be explored, which is why I asked Mr. Reed to present the resolution to the board so the board could decide if they were wanting to move forward with it.
But here, all right, so let me go down.
Now, another road, and the reason I said I got to ask those questions. Has there been any long-term plan? I'm looking at you, Trey, because this is, well, I mean, hey, does this fit into a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year land use plan for the board? Is there any expansion to those schools?
Yeah,
What,
no.
you see what I'm getting at? I mean, that would be the real concern. Then you hate to give it away or sell it or do whatever. What is it, 5 acres? 6 acres?
I think they were wanting.
Whatever. But it's something out of that size.
So it is not in our 5-year plan. And so, long-term, yes, that is the only piece of land that we own that we could build on, such as like a 9th grade academy.
Okay. That's what I was getting. There's got to be a reason other than
Just something else. If it's long-term planning, I would buy into that, so to speak, if there's not,
I got one question. I'm like Mr. Dahl. How did this come about? I mean, why didn't the county come to us? Why are we finding out about it like this? Why didn't they come to us first?
Madam Chair, can I?
Yes, you may.
I just want to give credit where credit is due. I did receive a call from a county commissioner about it, and I think he reached out. I'm not sure if did he reach out to you, Ms. Sharp? I thought he reached out to more than just myself, but I think he was reaching out to some board members in that area initially, just to try to see.
I too received a call.
Okay. I don't know why some and not everybody, but I did have a county commissioner reach out to me and let me know about it, which is the only reason I knew about it, so.
Ms. Maxwell, are you done? Mr. Vaughn?
I guess.
Speaking?
Sure.
Real quick.
So if I can just give a little bit. So this has been a big conversation the last couple of days, as you can only imagine. A lot of times is getting stuck in the middle of board things. I'm stuck right in the middle of this with the county commission as well. So fundamentally, I agree with this resolution. I do think that it was county school purchased. I think it goes back to, this is the 4th time in the last 2.5 years. Is that correct, Trey? 3 years, 2 years? 4th time that land that was purchased for school facilities is being utilized by county approval without coming before the board. And so that is the problem.
fire stations,
Yes.
health and ed.
Yes.
I was going to ask about it. All right.
Yes, so fundamentally, I think that's the problem. I've talked to multiple county commissioners about, I don't think we need to get to an argument about this, and we all need to be able to move together. They are under the interpretation of, we funded it, we can do with it what we want. I'm stuck in that fundamentally, I agree with everything Ms. Darby's brought up, but I'm also having to go and ask for Laverne High School's funding at the same time. And so I'm trying to not lose the war for a battle over these properties, and that's just where I feel stuck. Ms. Darby and I have talked about that a little bit. In talking to several county commissioners, I think it's unique that you have the chair of health and ed as also the vice chair of public works. Is that the correct term of the committee?
Public works.
And so I talked to him today. I said, this should have come before the board. And he, I don't like to speak for him, he 100% said yes. Instead, the question that was asked of Mr. Lee was, is this on the 5-year plan? And that's a simple, no, it's not. And that is where it went instead of coming before the board, which is where it should have come. And so I think that's where the issue came. Whatever it is decided, I want to make sure we don't damage our relationship with the county commission for a funding aspect, because we talked about with charter school funding, we don't want to make mad by doing things by ticking off our funding body. We're on that precipice right now.
Dr. Sullivan, can I say something really fast?
Mr.
Okay,
Sullivan.
sorry. I will make it really quick. So I spoke to the county commissioner in Grantlands. I've been talking to the person that's over the chair of public works, and he's informed me that he's tried to call every single board member on here, and some returned the phone calls and some didn't. He also spoke to me that he was trying very hard to make it to tonight's meeting because he wanted to speak into it and kind of clear up some of the air. But unfortunately, he has a health issue that he had that wouldn't allow him to come tonight. Maybe he'll be here tomorrow. But he also said to me that when he was looking into this, into the land, that yes, this was deeded to the Rutherford County School Board, but at the same time, it was used the county took out a bond in order to do the land for the schools where they're talking about. So he wanted me to tell everyone tonight and to specify that he wanted to come tonight to speak about this and that he did try to communicate with every single school board member, whether you answer his phone call or didn't answer his phone call. I can't answer that. But my understanding is that he told me that he tried to speak to everyone and talk about this.
If he is able to come tomorrow night, I will ask you all if you want to suspend the rules, and we'll vote to see if we can listen to him and he can answer our questions. Ms. Sharp, real quick.
Look, the problem I have with it is we've got two Title I schools. This was bought as one piece of property, and we put two different schools on it, and there's a road that goes in the middle of it. Mount Rushmore is going to be full soon. And so where is the garbage that's going to go to this dump? Where's it going to go? It's going to be there longer. These are two Title I schools that will be looking out their windows, looking at the dump where people bring their garbage. Children are not going to call it the convenience center because they think that's 7-Eleven or one of the stores or something. They're going to call it the dump. And where, Lord of mercy, we do need another location, but it doesn't need to be on the north end where we've closed off now. We just talked about three of our elementary schools, we've capped enrollment. There's no land up there to be found. All of us on this board has looked at numerous pieces of land, probably 20 pieces of land that are up there so we can find more land. We're putting the annex at Laverne High School, and that's going to be overcrowded. We build these schools too big, and then they go beyond capacity, and then we put an annex there. This is a rolling ball that we don't need to do because it's hard on the administration, it's hard on the students, it's hard to get teachers. We don't need to let go of this piece of property. We don't know what we're going to do with it. We may need it for another building for our school system. Right. We don't know. Are you telling me that there's no other land up there that they couldn't find or lease or something like that? I think this was probably the easiest thing, and I get it because they want to solve the problem. Does it need to have another location? Yes, but it doesn't need to be on the north end where property is scarce and we can't even find property for more schools. Why would we give away, or even if they paid us for it, why would we get rid of that property when we can build on it when we don't have property on the north end and a Title I school?
You know, it may not be in the 5-year plan, but the way it's growing down there, we may have to build a ninth grade academy on that land next year, year after, you know, the way they're growing.
Mr. Vaught, did you still?
I'm trying to look at both sides of this. I hate, you know, I would.
If you're going to turn it down, I want to turn it down for the reason that we needed to expand those schools. You know, if we look at redesign, take the road out of the middle, I think you said there's a road between the two schools or something. If you look at redesign, I'm getting way down the road. I don't need to do that. I'm just trying to be forethought. You would hate to look back 10 years from now, the body that takes our place looks at us and says, why in the devil did y'all give that property away or sell it or do whatever you want to do? The other side of it is, you know, if the county commission is asking us graciously to do something because they are our funded body, you would think that like and somebody made fun of me using my good old boy tactics, but like a good team of mules, we all need to be pulling in the same direction. Mr. Lee would understand what I'm talking about right there. But, so the county commission, the school board, all of us have to work together. If there's something we can do to help the county commission, then I will be for that. But I don't want to cut our nose off spot in the face. That was the reason I was asking the question about Mayor Cole. Has the city exhausted all of its options to do that? I'm getting into a discussion between two other political bodies that I have no right to. Right, that's between them, not between me and them, for us and them. So anyway, that's the reason I was trying to bring all this forward. You know, it's kind of forethought here. I don't even know if we need to vote on it or do anything.
Ms. Darby?
I just wanted to be clear, because I know there was some conversation, I think, from some commissioners that I think somehow this got misinterpreted as like a negative, like coming after the commission kind of thing. And I just want to be very clear. My intent with putting this together was simply to have something in writing if the board agreed that they were not in support of putting the trash center next to one of our schools. That was the sole and only purpose of doing the resolution, so that it gives the commission something in writing saying this is how the board feels about this particular situation. Nothing more, nothing less. I think there's a lot of discussion to be had about, I was just looking at the ESL numbers. I mean, Laverne Lake is 114 change from the spring in the ESL. I mean, it's a potential, we could use that as an ESL specialty building going forward, because there's a lot of that need on the north end. So to your point, there are a lot of things that could be done with that property, and Laverne in particular is very short on land because it butts up to the lake, it butts up to Davidson County. So I mean, there's just not a lot of options there for us. And there are still some other options that are not the school property that the county could look into. So.
I think Mayor Cole had mentioned that he was willing to lease it out for another year. Maybe that would give some more time for, to look at other properties, see what else is out there. It's just one of the interesting pieces to this puzzle for me is that if the school board had decided to go around the county and make a decision for the county commission, they'd be raising Cain. But if the county commission tries to make a decision around the school board, not so big a deal because they're our funding body. That part is, that's a little distracting for me. As far as the future use, we've had conversations about what this property could potentially be used for. So with that, I mean, again, this has nothing to do with starting a war with the county commission, at least not in my eyes. I think we're all moving toward the same direction. I just think we need to be reasonable on how we move that direction and what that looks like and what is actually right. That's kind of what I'm looking at.
Dr. Sullivan, Ms. Claire Maxwell, thank you. If we don't want to create a war with the county commissioners, the resolution is not the answer, because if we sign on a resolution, we're taking a stand that we don't want them to do something that they're in need of, and we're still needing funding to buy a piece of property that we're hoping is going to come before us in the north end to build a high school, and we still need funding for the high school construction of that, and the money for that is over $143,000, and we still need funding for the construction of a middle school that they're going to have to make decisions to go to the bond for us to pay for these notes and possibly looking into raising property taxes. I get where everyone's coming because this is kind of like a little bit of a shock, but they're having to find a solution, and they're wanting us to, maybe the best solution should have been for them to come to us before this, but and present it to us in a different manner. But if we do go forward with a resolution, whether you want to say, and it's a soft message, a resolution, I'm sorry, it is not a soft message to say we're taking a little stand on this. It is a pretty big deal. It does say we're taking a hard stand on something, and this is what it means as a board. And I don't, in my opinion, if we want to take a soft stance on this, it's not through the resolution. It's by continuing building and networking and getting this resolved behind the scenes without creating a conflict between the county commissioners, who has to make hard decisions about the needs that we need, which is way beyond the convenience center. And that's my 2 cents on that.
Well, I'll give you my 2 cents. We need this resolution to let them know, first of all, they need to come to us first before it gets to this level. If it'd come and talk to us, it'd probably been a little better. Second of all, that I wouldn't want my kids, I know the people in the Verne Middle School and elementary, they've done a great job to overcome a lot of things that, challenges they have down there. And I just can't see putting a dump where the kids can see and smell it is going to help them achieve what they want to achieve. I just think we need to pass this resolution, just let them know this is how we feel about it.
Ms. Maxwell.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree on the approach that if we sign a resolution letting them know where we stand on it, that that's going to be some kind of huge detriment to future funding. If they decide that they're not going to fund high schools and middle schools, and they want to have that battle publicly, that's on them to decide. I don't think that's the right decision. I think the right thing would have been for them to come to us and say, hey, you have some property over here. What's in the plans for this property? And do y'all have any long-term plans for it? We know it's super crowded up there. We're going to look at some other options in case this option is not available, but would you guys be willing to look at this option? That's why we have a board. So it makes more sense to me that, we would take a stance beyond including the reasons that Mr. Vaught has mentioned, Mr. Vaughn has mentioned. I think that's where I'm leaning toward at the moment.
Yes, Ms. Darby.
I can understand all sides of everything. It is extremely important that we all work together, but working together also doesn't mean that the school board becomes everybody's scapegoat either. So it is important, I think, that the school board, the county commission, the mayors, we all should be working together for the better of our county, of our cities, of our students. I personally don't believe putting a dump next to a school is in the best interest of our students, and it's my job to represent them and their family. This isn't a way to, I'm not trying to send some like crazy strong message. This is just simply to say, we don't feel like this is a good idea. Mr. Reed can speak to this tomorrow, but in my discussion with him, I'm not even sure that legally it's something they can do without the board approval. Just because somebody wants to bring up an opinion or bring up legal parameters does not mean they're not trying to work with somebody. But I kind of feel like we constantly get put in this place of like, well, we have to be really careful. Nobody's trying to throw anybody under the bus. Nobody's trying to be mean. Nobody's trying to do anything other than to do what's best for our students. And I agree with Mr. Tidwell. If they don't want to fund the middle school or the high school for some other reason, then they can have that discussion at their meeting publicly, just like we have ours. If they don't want to fund it because we're saying that we don't think a dump next to our school is a good idea, that's 100% on them. That's not but I'm trying to work with them, but it also doesn't mean that I'm willing to be bulldozed over to be able to do that. We should all be working together for the better of our county, for the better of our students. And I will say, I had a commissioner say to me, actually, I think moving forward, whenever we purchase land for a school, we'll just plan to put a convenience center there. And I have to say, so what message are we sending? Welcome to Rutherford County. We put dumps next to our schools. I mean, at some point, we have to stand up for what's right for our students.
Right.
And if the commission decides to not fund for that purpose, that is on them. That's their decision to make. I'm not trying to make that decision for them. I'm trying to do my job, which is to do what's best for the students.
Ms. Maxwell?
Yes.
I have to say this. We're sitting here debating over something that's going to cost $3 million. But when it came time to discuss about the $14 million that we were losing because of the charter schools, I didn't see a lot of you guys on the bandwagon and going out there, let's fight for that $14 million. And right now, we're talking about $3 million versus $14 million. And I need to say that.
Mr. Tidwell.
Yeah, there was plenty of discussion about the charter schools and the way the state views it and the way that this board views it, and there was a lot of discussion on that. So we can go into detail if you want to go into detail on that. That's neither here nor there. Neither here nor there on this particular project. So just one last final tie-up on this thing. I did have some county commissioners reach out to me, and we did have discussions. They have varying opinions on it. So because of that, it's not a unanimous decision when they've heard the feedback of, hey, we really don't Possibly the board doesn't want this out there, but how do they know what the board wants without talking to them first versus us finding out through this?
Ms. Maxwell, I want to say one more thing. I also want to bring up the discussion when we're talking about the charter schools, that some of you guys didn't want to get in. This is not a point of order. This is not a point of order. This is part of the conversation. This is not a point. You may not like what I'm saying, but this is.
Ms. Rosales, it's a work session.
Exactly, and we can talk and say what we need to say. We're not
point of order.
voting on anything. This is not a point of order. A point of order is if it's out of parliamentary procedures, and this is not out of parliamentary procedures. You may not like what I'm saying, and that's fine, but I have to say something. But when it came time to the charter funding, to fight for that, some of you guys said, why are we going to get into so-called litigation when we weren't even getting into litigation? Because we have to be negotiating, talking to our fellow representatives in good faith. So that's the same
Ms.
thing.
Rosales,
It is the same
please
thing.
stop.
It is
Please
the
stop.
same.
We're not here to talk about the charter schools tonight, okay?
It's not even on the agenda.
So, Ms. Rosales. Let's move on.
You hit that thing harder.
I'm sorry, I'm going to learn to hit this thing harder.
No insurance discussion. I'll have a director's update and financial report tomorrow.
You have anything for us, Mr. Vaught, regarding the Tennessee or federal? Okay.
He's going to get them to change the,
I aired last Thursday. It was another spirited debate, and I forgot to give out our committee assignments, and they're not legit until I announce them publicly. So I'm announcing committee assignments. Francis Rosales will be on the Charter Committee. Caleb Tidwell has graciously accepted the Audit Committee. Butch Vaughn will be on Insurance and Buses. Tammy Sharp will be Community Arts and Businesses. Stan Vaught will be the Tennessee Federal and Legislative Board Committee. And Katie Darby will be Board Special Events. And I appreciate, and I will be on the Safety Committee. And I also just got named, what? So sorry. I'm sorry. And I've also just gotten reconfirmed to the Juvenile Detention Oversight Board. So I will be serving on that committee for us as well. So any other general discussion? Yes, Mr. Vaught.
All right. I heard
And he's already sat down, so this may need to come up tomorrow night. In my previous one, when the public health and safety buildings were constructed on school property, was there never a deed transfer or permission given or resolution or anything? So you mean to say that I was a culprit in just plopping?
Yes, sir. You were. As respectfully as possible,
Well,
yes.
I just, nobody told me, because I would have assumed that the county attorney and the school board attorney would have either produced a long-term lease or a deed transfer from the school board to the county. And so, let's take Rockvale, for instance. Rockvale, that brand new public safety building that Commissioner Pettis Reed is extremely proud of, he needs to be, is sitting on school board property.
Correct.
It's not on county property.
Correct.
That is an interesting set of circumstances.
Sure is. And I will tell you in the conversations that I get told, it is, you can have it deeded whatever you want, but we're your funding body, and that is the unfortunate part that we get.
Wait a minute, I get that, I understand that, and I appreciate that. But then from a legal and liability standpoint, that's not good business. That's not how I've learned it.
And I'm
I've
hoping
learned it wrong, Mr. Lee, but that's how I've learned it, right?
I'm hoping you can help with that, because we're going to need somebody in the middle who has served on both.
There's just a few things you do that are good business,
Yes.
okay? I hate to keep looking at you, but me and you've got more gray hair here than anybody, so we've kind of been around.
And Mr.
That's a common theme, and I will say, on all of those, the only communication was through Klein Sweeney. And that was because of a past relationship that I had with them, that we knew anything about any of the public service buildings.
I deeply and humbly apologize, because I had assumed all that had been worked out before it was even given to us. See,
We are also, at some of those sites, we still have the electricity and the water under the county school system being billed for.
Really?
Correct.
Need to take care of that too.
Sure do.
I mean, we're all in it together. But
Correct.
there is a set of accounting and business rules that need to be followed. Anyway, interesting.
Very interesting.
I had to bring that up. I wrote,
Yeah.
I wrote myself a note here. What? Anyway.
So can you imagine that, Mr. Vaught, at the same time as we've asked for $210 million in construction cost? And that is the rub that has been. We've asked for $210 million roughly in the last 18 months. And so, like I said, fundamentally, I 100% agree with the resolution.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, well, maybe going forward, we can kind of smooth some of these bumps in the road out.
Absolutely, I'm all about smoothing the bumps. Yes, Ms. Sharp?
Thank you. Look, we don't want to be in the school building business.
No.
We want to be in the education business. But until somebody closes the gates on 24 at the north and south or east or west end, whatever you want to say, that we have to build schools. We have to. Nobody wants the feds to come down here and start looking at our numbers of overcrowding. That's not a fun thing at all for anybody to have. So we don't want to be in the school building business, but we have to.
Which, can I?
Yes, you may, Mr. Vaught.
This is kind of a discussion in general. This is discussion, right? This is legal that'll work.
Okay, I don't want to get in trouble. Mayor Cole at one of the forums brought up, Mayor Cole brought up, asked a question, and I think it was directed to Commissioner Wilson. Would the county commission put a moratorium on building until the schools got caught up? And it made me start thinking through the process, well, what would that look like? I think Mayor Cole was simply stating in the county, not in the city, which made me think, well, why would it be any different in the city than the county? If you're going to put a moratorium, and I hate to use that word moratorium, especially in the line of work that I'm in, but a quota system or something like that, a pause, I don't know what that would look like. Has anybody ever done any research? Because I know the city of Murfreesboro has denied construction permits on the east side. There is a statute, Tennessee law, that says that public utilities, public services, something cannot be provided, then this would kind of go to the adequate facilities tax, and I can rehash that. I'm not going to go down that road. But what research has ever been done by this body about asking for a slowdown? And you said, I mean, when you said close the gates, I don't know if close the gates in particular, but maybe you shut it a little bit. I don't think I've done any research.
So, we've talked to the county, we've talked to the city down here. What we can do is the municipalities can put some restrictions when the developers come in here and buy these pieces of land. If they buy the pieces of land and it has so many units in it that it's going to put the nearby school over capacity, they either have to, they can't build there, or they have to provide some land for another school. Now, no one's approached them in doing that, but that is one way to kind of stop this, because there's no really way to stop the builders. The county's not going to do anything about it, so it's going to have to go back to the municipalities for them to put some ordinances in restricting growth.
Well, the reason I said that, the city, again, on the east side, they have shut down any development on the east side.
Very similar.
Of Murfreesboro, because there's no sewer capacity, according to them. Yet there's sewer capacity on this side.
There's still building going over here, but there's no building going over there. So I don't know, would that be a way to control, and I hate to use the word limit, because if somebody wants to do something with their property, if they want to build a house on it, they should be able to. I just wondered how much research had ever been done related to that.
We still have about 10,000 homes coming in across the street from Rock Springs on the north end. So that's another reason, with the arbor tree, that's another reason that I don't need to get rid of any property.
Somebody, would you like to say those famous words?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned.